Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. This week, we are going to be previewing the two big games on the weekend we have coming up. Aston Villa versus Arsenal, and we also have Newcastle taking on Liverpool. Joining me today to preview these two matches, we have with us Carey.
Yes, viewers, subscribers, we're back again to dissect some interesting football, so let's get it started.
Yes, and diving straight in, Carey, we saw that massive game which took place midweek. Arsenal versus Man City. Man City coming out victorious 3-1. Talk to us about that.
What can I say? Predictions went bad. I can arguably say that maybe if you said the better team won on the day, you probably wouldn't be wrong. Um, if you check the stats boxes though, when it comes to possession, chances created, passes completed, passing accuracy, Arsenal dominated the stats box. But both you and I know that at the end of the 90 minutes when the referee blows his whistle, there's only one stat that really matters. How many you have in the back of the net? And
Indeed.
it was a tale of one team taking their chances versus the other team not taking their chances. Despite the loss, there's positive that you could pick up for Arsenal, that is. If this was possible last year, then the script would have probably been flipped where Man City would have dominated the midfield battle, dominate the possession, dominate the passing, dominate the entire flow of the game. But at one point, it was really matched. Even Arsenal went down. They came back in the game, scored a goal. One thing to note is that two of those goals that Man City scored came from, well, one was a hard back pass by Tomiyasu, who was thrown into the lineup for Ben White.
Ben Blanco.
Maybe personally, I would not have made that change to the starting lineup, but Ben White hasn't been his self since the start of the season. The Ben White that we got used to the first 18, 19 matches. So, but personally, I would not have benched him for this match, but it is what it is. Partey once again missing a big game through injury. Who knows if he would have impacted the game, but it is Partey, so injured when needed most. It is what it is. Won't make any excuses. Tomiyasu back pass, deflection from him again. We lost, but I think this Arsenal team is definitely looking forward to the next match as we're going into now with Aston Villa. So let us see if they get back on track. Villa and Man City is ready. Pep is definitely going for the title more than ever. So should be
Yes.
fun times ahead.
Yes. Man City sitting on top of the league as we speak. Arsenal, however, have a game in hand. But it was a very interesting tactical battle. We saw Pep setting up with Bernardo in one of the fullback position to the surprise of many. And while he held his own against Saka, that tactical switch in the second half where he brought on Akanji and then Bernardo went out to the flank. I think that was definitely a good change there, and it definitely had a major impact on the outcome of the game. But as you say, Arsenal was dominant in possession, dominant pressing, forcing City back. I think it's one of the first time that Man City have played a game with only 36% possession at the end of the game. But as you mentioned, the key statistic is it was a case of Man City taking their chances and Arsenal failing to take theirs when it did come around. We saw Nketiah missing, I would say, two gilt-edged chances, while it was that half chance which presented itself to Haaland that pretty much killed off the game. So it was a tale of two very exciting teams, two very competitive teams. It should be a ding-dong battle going down to the wire. According to Pep, Arsenal is still leading the league, with that proverbial game in hand. So from a mental point of view, he is viewing it as if Arsenal is still leading. So, he is allowing the players to remain hungry. And we'll see how it turns out. But the games are coming thick and fast. And on Saturday, that early kickoff sees Aston Villa coming up against a wounded Arsenal. How do you see those teams going into this match?
Well, we said wounded Arsenal, but we're not saying wounded Aston Villa. I mean, Aston Villa went against Man City in their last match and lost 3-1. Arsenal went and lost 3-1 as well. So,
Identical scoreline.
um, identical scoreline, just that tale of two different stories because Arsenal was dominant. But this is the fixture I think that Arteta really has to get the boys ready for. Get this win early out, build confidence going forward. Aston Villa not in the best of forms, Arsenal not in the best of forms, but if we're going to be realistically on paper, Arsenal should win. And I think this would definitely be a confidence booster to the team to try to get them back, steady the ship somewhat. Because right now, we have to be realistic. One win, Arsenal is back on top. And if Man City drop any points whatsoever, then it's pressure again. So right now, it's every game must win. The boys have to be ready to go out and take the chances come Saturday morning. And I think Aston Villa is the right team to go and get those 3 points from. They are a bit down and out at the moment, just like Arsenal. So it is the right time to capitalize on Aston Villa's poor run of form and get the 3 points. Even if it's a one nil, just 3 points to build the confidence, kind of steady the nerves, get the ship back anchored and all of that. So we're looking forward to it. Just hope that's how it plays out.
Yes, definitely. Aston Villa hasn't had the best home record in the season thus far. However, Emery, the former Arsenal coach, will be looking to prove a point. So I wouldn't necessarily take this game as a gimme, so to speak. Aston Villa do have players that can definitely hurt the quaking Arsenal defense at the moment, with the likes of Watkins and Bailey up front, they seem to have been creating a good little partnership going forward. So I wouldn't take them lightly. This being the EPL, anything is possible. And Arsenal now being out of form, this is a prime opportunity for Aston Villa to sneak a
Mhm.
win or even a draw. So it's going to be a fascinating game. But in terms
Right.
of lineup for both teams, what say you? Do you see Arteta making any changes? And from the Villa point of view, do you see any changes from Emery as well for maybe tactical reasons?
No, honestly, I think the last 11 Emery used versus Man City, barring injuries, is possibly one of his strongest 11s. I think he will stick to that. As I said, Bailey, Ollie Watkins up there forming a good partnership. I think we expect to see that from Arsenal. The same versus Man City. For Arsenal, Partey, we're not sure if he'll be playing on the weekend. Right now, it's a high doubt that he will. Jorginho wasn't bad yesterday, to be honest. Have to give credit where credit is due. He came in and he did a good job. So even if Partey or Jorginho is there, I honestly think Martinelli has to be benched now. This is his sixth match where we have got absolutely nothing out of Martinelli. So I think Trossard should get the nod. Even if Martinelli is not benched, Nketiah should be benched. Either one I'm fine with, but get Trossard in the game from early. He should be in the starting 11. Um, I would say put back Ben White. Let Ben White fight his demons then on the pitch. Get back in Ben White. We saw Tommy, so he was not up for it mentally. I always emphasize that there's a difference between being fit to play the match and being mentally fit to play that match fit. I don't think Tomiyasu is up to that level right now. So get back in Ben White. That's a change I would make. If Partey is to go, give him a run. If not, Jorginho is there. Martinelli, Nketiah, either one on the bench. Trossard should come.
Okay, I see. So a couple changes then from the team which lost to Man City, you're saying. Martinelli out, Trossard in. But you did mention Nketiah, but is there a ready-made replacement for that number 9 spot that Arsenal have, or is this showing the lack of depth in the squad with the Jesus injury?
No, it's not. If we remember, Martinelli can play center forward. Martinelli can strike. Trossard can play right across the attacking line. He can be left wing. He can play number 10. He can play a false nine. He can play an out and out number nine. He can play left wing. So it is there. It's just need a little tweaking.
Mm,
And we have seen from Man City. Man City have done it where they don't play with an out and out number nine until this year. So it can be done from once you have that belief that you have the quality players to do it. I think Trossard and Martin are quality players to do it, but it's in the coach's hand. He sees what's happening in training. He knows best. But if it were me, I would probably tweak it a little bit just to see how it goes because Nketiah is not delivering as how we want him to be right now. We can't really have Nketiah leading the line at this moment. Started
mhm.
off well, but this is what you get from a player who is not a class player, world class player. Just a run of farm. Farm is temporary, class is
Class is
permanent. We
permanent.
know that. So
Yes, indeed. It's just
it is what
interesting
it
to
is.
see if this dip in form is somewhat rocking the Arsenal boat, where we see little tweaks here or there that might be disrupting the equilibrium somewhat. But it's going to be interesting to see how Arsenal lines up against this Aston Villa team. As mentioned, Emery is the former or a former Arsenal coach, so he will definitely be looking to take some points off his former team. And I believe in the last game that Aston Villa played against Man City, one of their key defender, Mings, was out injured, and a former Arsenal centre back, Chambers, deputized in his absence. So I'm hoping that Mings may be back to somewhat solidify the leaky Aston Villa defense. But in terms of a predicted score, how are you looking for this one to end?
I see Arsenal getting the win with this one, 2-1. I think, as I said, both teams are somewhat out of form. So I'm going to give the team that is possibly better on paper the win. So I'm going with Arsenal 2-1.
Yes, it's hard to disagree with that scoreline, to be honest, and I am also leaning towards Arsenal win. I'm gonna go 3-1, however. So I'm thinking Arsenal is definitely gonna be gunning, comeback gunning, trying to bounce
Yeah,
back from that defeat to Man City because there were lots of positive to take from that game. So it will be interesting
definitely.
to see if Arteta can steady the ship and rather than lead into a slippery slope, I'm looking for Arsenal to bounce back with a pretty convincing 3-1 victory. But we'll see how that one plays out. Additionally, we can now pivot to looking at the next big game on the weekend. We have Newcastle taking on Liverpool. How do you see both teams coming into that fixture?
Um, ooh, Liverpool. We saw a vintage Liverpool display last weekend. Let's not leave that out. We saw a vintage Liverpool. And by vintage, we mean probably last 2 seasons, not a couple of years ago. Those last 2 seasons where we had Salah, Mane gunning for it. We saw Nunes looking very alive and sharp. Salah looking deadly, like the Salah that we all know for the past several seasons. The midfield wasn't that bad. They, put up a good fight and I went to line. The pressing, the energy was totally different from what we have seen since the start of the season. So Liverpool coming in and red hot, one win, but it was a very very positive look. I gave that Liverpool performance a solid 8.5 out of 10. So they're coming out very red hot, a very red hot match. I know that the confidence is there. Salah and Gakpo got his goal, so I know he's going to be playing at some his comfort zone now because he has all that pressure off him now. He got his goal. Nunes linking up with Salah. Newcastle on the other hand, um, can we tell the last Newcastle won again? They've just been drawing everything, to be honest. But the one positive you could get from the Newcastle farm, although they've been drawing basically every match coming up in the EPL, is that they are not losing. Let's just be realistic. They're not losing the matches. And throughout the matches, they're putting on good defensive displays. They have the best defensive record in the league since week three, I think. So their defense is solid. So let's not underestimate that. Yes, they haven't been winning, but at the same time, on the flip side, they haven't been losing. They're just not really killing off the games, as it were. They lack that little killer instinct that they showed in the previous or earlier part of last season. They have dipped a bit, but quality team, very well coached. Eddie Howe is doing a very, very good job with them. They're looking to keep and maintain that top four position. So I know it's going to be a very feisty match, especially in the midfield there. They know that Liverpool midfield right now is not the strongest that it has been over the past couple of years versus Newcastle midfield, which is revamped now, and then they have Almirano, who is playing out of his mind at the moment. So it should be an interesting match. Should be an interesting match.
Yes.
For a neutral like me, it's going to be something to see because Newcastle is definitely trying to get that win. Liverpool is trying to extend on their win, so should be very, very, very interesting.
Yes. Fascinatingly enough, the one defeat that Newcastle have suffered all season was inflicted by Liverpool, a very late winner by Carvalho. I believe that winner came around the 98th minute of time added on. And that's the only defeat that Newcastle have suffered all season. As you mentioned, they have the meanest defense in the league as well. But currently, they have more draws than win. So I think that is their main issue. Their main issue is while they are not losing many games, they're failing to capitalize on going that extra mile and getting those 3 points. So I believe it's going to be a tight game. As you mentioned, Liverpool coming off a win. Granted, I don't want the fans to get carried away. So even though it was a good performance by Liverpool, bear in mind it was against a relegation struggler at home as well. So I wouldn't necessarily read too much into that win. Liverpool has been out of form, and I don't think one win at home against a relegation struggler is suddenly going to steer the ship in the right direction. So with Newcastle being at home, the fans behind the team, a raucous Newcastle fan base as per usual, St. James Park have become a fortress, and Newcastle haven't been conceding a lot of goals. So it's going to be a tight affair. Players coming back from injury from Liverpool. We saw Jota making a substitute appearance. Newcastle, on the other hand, have been suffering a few injuries and suspension in terms of causing some level of disruption to their midfield, where we see the Brazilian Guimarães has been suspended for, I believe it was a red card. And we also see injuries to the likes of a Willock. And also Almiron, you mentioned, also came off in their last game with a knock. So it will be interesting to see if they recover from those knocks and can solidify that midfield position. I am looking forward to seeing that new striker for Newcastle, though, Isaacs. He made his debut against Liverpool in August, I believe, but then picked up an injury. So he is just coming back from injury. So it should be very fascinating to see how he gels with this Newcastle team and if he can get one over on Liverpool. But in terms of your lineup, how do you see both teams lining up? Any changes from the previous game?
No, especially from the Liverpool perspective, no. Barring injuries, anything like that, I think Klopp was pleased with what he saw in the last match. I think that, especially with the far line, that's the far line he seems like he will be working. So don't expect much changes there. You said Newcastle, we can't really call Newcastle right now because we haven't got any injury updates on I think around three other players. So we can't really predict the lineup now. We just know that the back four will, be very firm there. The back four, they have a very solid back four. Really pick up injuries. It's just that red card to Bruno, as you mentioned, a few injuries here and there. Those what we didn't know the severity of the injuries at the time. So hopefully by tomorrow we'll probably know more. But with those players being out, it will be time for Newcastle. Remember that Newcastle spent some cash in the summer. So I think they're also ready to flex that squad depth now. Because they do have quality players who can come on, fill in, possibly make a difference.
Yes, I agree with you on that as well. I don't see Klopp making many changes to that starting 11 that started against Everton. Pretty much everyone is fit as far as I know. I don't think he will rush Van Dijk back. Van Dijk may yet get another spot on the
And
bench,
I'm not sure too. Mhm.
right? Until he's fully 100 and he may come in on the next occasion, but maybe this Newcastle game comes too early for him to be thrown into the deep end. So I believe Klopp will stay with that 11. They got a win after toiling for several games without a win. So he may very well just reward these guys by giving them another start. As you mentioned, Newcastle, on the other hand, has a rock solid defense. So I don't see any changes being made to that defense. And it's really a back five, I would say, because Pope in goal have been making some outstanding saves as well. So not only is the back four playing out of their skin, if you do make it past that four in the defense, then you still have to get it past Pope in goal.
Yeah. He's
So
rock
I
solid.
believe Newcastle is hanging their hats right now on their defense and then taking anything that may come along in the offensive third. So I believe Isaac should get the start over Wilson, who have been quite injury prone since rejoining the squad after the World Cup. He's been in and out of the squad, and Isaac in the last match against Bournemouth played the full 90 minutes. So I would expect to see Isaacs again. It is in the midfield where you might see some chopping and changing taking place due to suspension and injuries. So I am looking at how we line up tactically to counter the Liverpool three. You mentioned Liverpool came with some energy, some exuberance,
Mhm.
pressing from the first whistle. So, and it's the same from Newcastle. Newcastle is also a high energy team. Eddie Howe has brought that pressing game to Newcastle as well. So it's gonna be fascinating to see how these two teams go at it. I believe Liverpool is somewhat still fragile. So even though they're coming off a win, an early goal could knock the stuffing out of them, especially playing away from home. And with that Newcastle backline being so firm, it may prove quite difficult for the Liverpool front three to break them down. But in terms of how you see this game playing out, Carey, and the final result, how do you see it?
Well, not surprisingly, to be honest, I think it's going to just end in another Newcastle draw. I'm going 2-2.
Okay, 2-2. This one is a tough one for me, to be honest. It's a very tough game. Newcastle drawing quite a bit of their games. Liverpool playing away from home, coming off a win. Their away record thus far this season hasn't been the best of records. In fact, they are struggling in their away fixtures. We vividly recall Brighton beating them convincingly, Wolves beating them convincingly.
Mhm.
So for me, I am going to back Newcastle to eke out a 1-0 victory. I am not, I'm still not convinced about this Liverpool turnaround. And with Newcastle playing at home, the fans behind them, the history between these two teams, these two managers, I just have a strong football sense that Newcastle may very well break that spell of draws and eke out a 1-0 win in this one. So for me, Newcastle to win 1-0. Any final thoughts, Kerry, before we wrap up the podcast, though?
No, no final thoughts, to be honest. As I said, Arsenal, I just really hope Arsenal can steady the ship, get their head back into it. It's a good opportunity. It's a big opportunity still to someone show some title credentials this weekend. Yes, you lost to the second place, no first place. team. You lost to them 3-1, but now it's a time to show that, listen, we're still here. These things happen. We'll bounce back, show the title credentials. Time for Klopp to pick up some more points. Newcastle to try and secure top four. So feisty matches. So let's look out for those. Should be a very good weekend of football.
Yes, I am definitely looking for this weekend of football, you know. The games are coming thick and fast and lots to see, lots to enjoy. But viewer subscribers, I'd just like to thank you again for joining us here on Beating the Press podcast. Just want to ask you to continue to share, like, and subscribe. And until next time, this is Rafa signing off.